yeah, you have your problems as a business, as a brand, as a concept, but so does your competition. So just keep your head down and control what you can control and build the best brand and culture. And if you just swim long enough, you're probably going to look up, raise your head, look up and look around, and you may be the leader.
Need a partner who sees the big picture? Forza Management. We're not just property managers, we're strategic partners. Navigating the complex world of commercial real estate can be daunting. That's where Forza Management comes in. Forza Management provides services in the mountain and desert states and covers all types of asset classes, including retail, industrial, and office. Our team of experts delivers exceptional property management services, namely property maintenance, lease administration, and annual CAM reconciliations. When looking at your next property, check out our website at forzacommercial.com. Forza Management, maximizing your investment and minimizing your stress.
Welcome back to the Dirt Dog Pod. Today we've got a founder of a retail concept today and CEO of Lovesac, Shawn Nelson. Shawn, thanks for joining us on the pod.
Yeah, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
We are really excited about your concept. You know, when I told the office that Porter and I were recording with you today, unbelievable amount of excitement, you know, just because I think Lovesac, and especially with us being headquartered here in Utah, you know, a lot of super fans here in the state for you and your concept.
Yeah, well, we are a Utah original, and I think came up at a time originally when it was kind of preposterous for us to be doing what we were doing. So made a lot of noise.
So I just thought like the best place to start is where in the, like, were you just sitting around? Were you in college? Were you in high school? And you were like, let's create these gigantic, huge, you know, Lovesacs, and this is going to work. Like, where did the idea come from?
Yeah, it isn't glamorous, but I was 10 days out of high school. I went to Olympus High School in Salt Lake City, Utah. Sitting there on my parents' couch, watching The Price is Right, eating a bowl of Captain Crunch. And I had this dumb idea out of nowhere. Like, I thought, how funny would it be to make a beanbag like this big, like me to the TV, the whole floor. And I'm obviously kind of an impulsive weirdo. So turned off the TV, drove down to Joann's Fabrics, bought 7 yards of tan vinyl, black vinyl that was on sale, because that's what you make a beanbag out of. Brought it home, looked at a baseball, a couple figure eights, drew it, cut them out, started sewing them together using my 7th grade home ec skills, jammed my mom's sewing machine. And it would be my neighbor who would finish it for me with her seamstress skills, put a zipper in it, and gave it back to me. And I had to stuff it, you know, went to Michael's, found some beanbag beads, didn't even make a dent. This thing was so massive. So packing peanuts, old blankets, anything I could find that was squishy to put in there. But I found my parents' camping mattresses in the basement, you know, like a yellow piece of foam with a bungee cord around them, chopped those up on a paper cutter into strips, then into little cubes, and 3 weeks of putting crap in there, and finally had the thing full, and it would fill the back of a truck. So we took it everywhere. Took it to the drive-in movies, took it camping, everywhere we take it. Everybody's like, oh my gosh, where did you get that? They want one. There's my market research. And, but it would be 3 years until I ever made another one for a friend, because I, was in college utilizing it, getting all this feedback, and then went on a mission for my church, put it away, forgot about it, came back home, started dating again. My friends were going to the drive-in movies, dragged it back out. And after seeing it go up and down the street 100 times, my neighbors finally stopped me and said, look, you got to make me one of these for my kids for Christmas. And if I'm going to make one, then I need, like a name, a business, love, peace, hate, war, love bag, Lovesac. Oh, that's cool. Paid $25 at the Utah State Tax Commission to register Lovesac in October of 1998. And I'm 21 years old and have this little company as a side hustle while I'm waiting tables to pay my way through school.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Did your dad when he got home day one and he's like, "Hey, wait a minute, you just cut up all of our camping mattresses." Were you just like so furious into the production of it that he just sat back, or was he kind of like, "Hey, what's the deal here, bud?"
Oh, they had no idea what I was doing. They didn't even know. I'm down in the basement doing my thing. They paid no attention. It would be probably years before they realized they didn't have any foam mattresses anymore.
So that's it. So that was how it was born. Just kind of came to be, and a fun. And so Bob Barker is maybe the key to your success here with Price is Right.
Who knows? We have these dumb ideas. Everyone has ideas. And I think, that's how I kick off. I wrote a book capturing this whole story called Let Me Save You 25 Years. It's the kind of book that I wish I had had as I got going in this craziness. Very honest, tried to, the subtitle's Mistakes, Miracles, and Lessons from the Lovesac Story. And the first lesson, Shawn is in number 1 of 25 in that little book, is just do something, and in my case, I probably could have talked about a really big beanbag idea, but I got off the couch and what's funny on reflection is I'd come to find out later in 1998, I know of at least 2 other giant beanbag companies that came into existence. And that's how the universe works. It's weird. And my point is, if we don't take action on our ideas, when the universe kind of gives them to us, they'll just be ideas forever. And so
that's a great thought.
I have no genius in it. But Lovesac has evolved. If I zap to present day, I could have never imagined. The question I get all the time is like, "Oh, do you have the original Lovesac?" No. Once I started making more, the original had holes from campfires and old and smelly. I tossed it. I didn't think this was going to become, we were literally, our first sale was at the lawn at the University of Utah in a little 10 by 10 booth. We plopped some sax down, played some Bob Marley at their annual, student festival. And we took a half a dozen orders. And that's how the company was for like the first couple of years. It was just a side hustle. It was a funny thing to do. Never made any money, had to fix the van. And who would guess that now 26 years later, we're publicly traded on NASDAQ. We're building toward $1 billion in sales. We've been valued at over $1 billion at different, depending on the market at the time, and get to employ a couple thousand people, have 300 locations across the country in the best shopping centers, in the United States for sure. Boast some of the highest sales per square foot in retail. Like forget furniture, like we're selling giant objects, and we sell mostly couches. We are by far, the product has completely shifted from where we started. And I couldn't have known that just doing something, making a big beanbag could have possibly led me to all that.
So let's go back to those early days, right? So you're at the University of Utah. You got the 10 by 10 set up. You take the 6 orders, and then I just assume you're back to the garage, back for manufacturing.
Yeah. So basically, I was waking up, going to school, studying business and Chinese. I learned Chinese on my mission. It comes into play later in the story. Mm-hmm. In the afternoons, I found a furniture company that made couches, and they would have a bunch of this scrap foam, and I needed it, and I was cutting it up by hand at first. And on about my 5th visit, because it took weeks to make one of these things, I said, "Do you have any way to shred this stuff up?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, we got a foam shredder right back here." They hadn't used it since like the 80s, and it had to be fixed and refurbished, but I got it working. It's kind of like a grain grinder. It was a modified grain grinder with an electric motor on it. So think of like a wood chipper you use in your backyard. It's kind of like that. Then I would feed in strips of foam. I'd have to take a kitchen knife to cut down some of the bigger pieces of foam into strips that would fit inside of this machine, shred it up, spit it out. But now I can make a sack in like an hour. So in the afternoons, I'm making sacks, delivering them to people in this old Lovesac van on the weekends. And I recruited a couple of my friends who were just willing to kind of come in and help out, just help. And eventually, but because it never made any money, right? Every time we made any money, I had to buy more fabric, fix the van, fix the shredder, do that. So meanwhile, I'm waiting tables at night, paying my way through school. And after 2-3 years of doing this, we had a big order, 50 for us, a big order from Red Bull. Red Bull had discovered us and wanted a bunch of sacks for their booths, have at the bottom of the ski hill, mountain bike tent, whatever. And at the same time, I had gotten this offer to go take an internship in Shanghai, China through the university to work speaking Mandarin Chinese, leading training courses in team building, presentation skills, leadership skills. It was like a dream job for me, and I had to take it. So I leave the company in my friend's hands. I said, look, try and finish this Red Bull order while I'm gone. I come back home a year later to finish my last semester of school from China, and the Red Bull sacks had not shipped out yet. I had to finish them, help shrink them down, and so it gives you an idea of how just tiny and scrappy and terrible our operation was for the first few years.
Yeah.
But we had this little business, and I had this job waiting for me that, I was going to go back and this international career. I just had to finish my last semester of school, and I was going to close Lovesac because it never made any money. And everyone I told that, hey, I'm going to move on with my life, they're like, no, you can't close Lovesac. I love my Lovesac. And so I said, okay, we'll give it one last shot. I found my way to this trade show in Chicago where more companies like Red Bull could discover us, I guess. And, set up a 10 by 10 booth, credit carded our way there, tried to look professional, and lots of companies loved our stuff, sat on it, whatever. No one bought anything. So I come back home dejected. I'm stuffing a Lovesac down at the factory, wrapping up my last month of school, and my phone rings, and it's an out-of-state number. So I turn off the shredder and brush the foam out of my hair and answer it, Lovesac Corporation.
Yeah.
This is 2001. And it's a buyer representing the Limited 2. So the Limited Corporation at the time, right? Bath and Body Works, Victoria's Secret, Express, Limited 2. You'd know it today is, Justice.
Mm-hmm.
They want 12,000 little sacks. They have no idea that it's me and a buddy and a wood chipper thing. And I said, of course, no problem. We're the best not beanbag company in the world. They FedEx me a piece of this blue fuzzy fabric with little silver specks in it they want. It's got to be by this date, super low price. We're buying 12,000 units. They have no idea they're talking to a kid about to graduate from college. And I fly off to North Carolina, High Point, to find 30,000 yards of this fabric they're demanding. And I find it. And I'm all excited. I run up to the booth in this giant, the biggest fabric trade show in the United States. I said, hey, I'm Shawn. I'm here for the Limited 2. I need 30,000 yards. He said, no problem. It's $5 a yard. I said, no. I need it for like half that. He said, well, look, I'm a direct importer. You're not going to get any cheaper. So again, by the way, I don't know how I'm going to purchase 30,000 yards of fabric.
Yeah, sure. Right.
I'm a waiter.
Yeah, right.
I'm looking around this guy's booth, and he's got these fabric sample boxes behind him, and there's Chinese writing on there. And it's the address of the fabric mill that makes this fabric in Shanghai, China. So I can't quit now. I credit card my way back to Shanghai. I walk in the 32nd floor of this downtown office building, sales office for this fabric mill. And I said, hi, I'm Shawn. I'm here for the Limited 2. I need 30,000 yards of this fabric. They said, yeah, we make that, no problem. It's $5 a yard. I said, no. I need it for half. I do this in English. I speak Chinese, but I just want to hold those cards. And, I'm 23 years old. They start talking amongst themselves, their Chinese sales reps, about how much it costs to manufacture this fabric in front of me.
In Chinese?
In Chinese. And I understand everything they're saying. Right. So I know that they can hit my price. Yeah. So I just stand there for 2-3 days and negotiate. It's $5, it's $4, it's $3. Okay, we'll do the deal. We'll make no money. We just want to have a new customer in America. So they're going to cut them. They're going to sew them. They're going to ship them to me, but I got to stuff them. And they said, all we need is a $65,000 deposit to get started on this order. And I've got to get back, finish my last couple of weeks of school.
Yeah.
So I call up the Limited 2 from China. I said, hey, I'm here in China at my factory. I'm ready to go with your order. I need a $65,000 deposit to get you started. And they said, well, we're the Limited Corporation. We don't give deposits. I said, well, we're Lovesac. We've never done a deal without a deposit. What's wrong with you? And they wire me $65,000 to my University of Utah credit union account because that's all I had. I wire that to this fabric mill. And so now I'm committed, right? Like I spent their money. I can't do, and I fly back home, send out every credit card offer I could find, and build a stuffing factory on credit cards in downtown Salt Lake City. And I was going to try and buy some more of those grain grinders. I drive out to farm country. I said, do you have anything bigger? He said, oh yeah. He shows me this thing called a hay buster, which is a hay grinder that you'd see out in the fields of farmland, meant to shred up those 2,000-pound rolls of hay.
Mm-hmm.
And the first time I throw a bag of foam up in there, it jams it, kills it. Understand it's tractor powered. Okay. So it's got a tractor connected to this hay buster, and the farmer couldn't believe it because this thing will shred up 2x4s. We could throw, a table in there. It'll shred it up. But the foam kind of wrapped around the blades. And so we had to make some alterations. We had to build a lid on it, all kinds of things. We make it work. It's the only thing I can afford. I can't afford a $500,000 German shredder machine. So I get an agricultural loan from the United States government, purchase a 1970s tractor and hay buster, bring it down to this building we've rented, get the hay buster inside the loading dock. The tractor has to stay outside on a platform. We connect it every morning with a drive line. And I have a tractor powered shredding factory to stuff 12,000 little Lovesac's that are just about to arrive from Shanghai, China on a container. So September rolls around. We've got this factory built. I got 20 temp laborers ready to rock. We've got to make 300 sacks a shift in order to, meet their timeline. And the first shift, we complete 30.
Are you still shredding like foam mattresses? Is that your material?
So I'm buying 2,000-pound bales of scrap foam from Lazy Boy. They had a factory there in Utah at the time.
Yeah.
Truckloads of foam on credit cards. So I could shred it into sacks and then collect money as I ship off full truckloads of shrunken down little Lovesac's, because we invented the idea of sucking all the air out of them for shipping, which at the time was really novel. We had a patent on it. And we could stack them on pallets, but the production was just terrible. We were a bunch of kids trying to run a mass production. We ran 2 shifts to get it done. We broke even on the order. 9/11 happened while we're in the factory. Price of foam goes up. Price of shipping goes up. It's chaos. But we get the order done by October. And the problem is I'm in the process of collecting $250,000 from a national retailer, and I have no other customers. And we have this factory that wants to keep going. So we scramble and go to the biggest furniture stores in the country. In the West, it's R.C. Willey, Warren Buffett's chain now. They look at us and laugh, and they don't want. Who's going to pay $500 for a big beanbag? Your name is silly. Your logo's ugly. Get out of here. Bigger furniture store, American Furniture Warehouse in Colorado, same thing. They've got dozens of stores. They want nothing to do with our product. We met with the buyer, didn't go well. So we come back home dejected, and my cousin Trace, who says, well, let's open our own store in a mall. He'd been working cell phone stores for years through college himself. He knew retail a little bit. And I said, that's crazy, but we run to the malls. We have no other choice. And all the malls in Utah reject us. They're like, again, we've got Abercrombie and Fitch coming. We got Pottery Barn. What's Lovesac? Get out of here.
We got to take a time out here because and go back to this. Utah has such an entrepreneurial spirit.
Oh yeah.
But whatever your parents and Trace's parents were feeding you guys at your houses, it's like you guys both got a 10x measure of whatever this entrepreneurial spirit is. Where do you think it comes from? I mean, just the story you just told right there is wild, right? To just look and read on the box and see the factory name, and then just hop on a flight and go to Shanghai and go find the factory. I mean, is truly remarkable, right? Very few people are wired to work like that, right? Where do you think that comes from for you?
I don't know. I mean, I certainly am of the belief, like on my own podcast, Let Me Save You 25 Years, I talk to entrepreneurs every week and some of the most successful people on earth. And I don't believe that everyone should be an entrepreneur. I think that in our society, it's super celebrated. It's, of course, because you're talking about millionaires and billionaires all the time, and who doesn't want that? But there's a lot of natural, I won't even call it ability, I'll call it personality traits, the ability to live in uncertainty, the ability to take risk and be able to sleep at night. Not everybody has that naturally, and it can be super uncomfortable and maybe even deadly almost for people to take that on if it's not naturally. And so I don't know how to answer your question. It just, that was how I operated. And I don't know where it comes from. I just am wired that way. And I try to not lose it. You know, here I am 26 years in. And look, I expected to be on my fifth. I have friends that are on their fourth and fifth businesses, and I'm still running the one I started in college, which is embarrassing. At the same time, it's kind of cool. Like, because once you get to a point, you realize, like, our ambition at Lovesac, like if I go to present day, is to build the most loved brand in America. And it's going to sound ridiculous to those listening to this podcast who are in business. It's fine. But that's exactly what we're going to do. And we're going to do it. And I think we have a path to it for reasons I can get into later. But it requires me to have, so the book ends with this Shawnism: maintain top ambition with infinite patience. And when I finally made the decision, look, I'm 25 years in, I'll go another 25. Who cares? Like, I'm friends with centimillionaires and billionaires, many of them not necessarily super happy, depending on how they've lived their life. It's the chase that's so interesting and fun. And once I made that decision, I'm free to basically go as long as it takes to reach my ambition, so I want a Nike, I want an Apple, I want out of Lovesac, which I know sounds ridiculous. But by the way, if Phil Knight and his friends can do it, why can't I? Why not? And so my point is, I try to, even now, this far in, maintain an attitude of risk. I do not have outside investments really outside of Lovesac. I'm not very diversified. All my chips are on the table. And I'm not offering financial advice. I'm not saying it's a good thing. But I will tell you, the reason we completed that first order is because I had to. Mm-hmm. I had to pay back the limited. It would be a bad outcome. I had to pay off my credit cards. Mm-hmm. Embrace economic pressure. This is not a place that most people can be comfortable in. And I'm grateful. I don't know. I'm grateful that that's how I'm wired, because it got us here.
It's amazing. Truly amazing. I think the people who are customers of yours will understand your sentiment of building the most loved brand, because at least, for the people I know that are familiar with Lovesac, anybody who is a customer loves it.
Cool.
They're emphatic, right? It's not like, and I think about that, like, think of all the various products that we've got inside of our homes, right? I mean, lamps and coffee tables and, all kinds of things, right? Dining room tables, etc. Where do you really hear somebody being super passionate about one of their furniture items?
Right. Yeah.
And
it's pretty boring.
But when you're talking about your Lovesac product, people get really, fired up about it. They get excited about it, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and I think, just to build on that, we'll come back to the story. Mm-hmm. The reason I believe we have a path to building a brand that's here for a century and resonates with people in a different way, and by the way, extends beyond furniture even, is because of the philosophy that emerged later in our story that drives everything we do now. We call it Design for Life. We make things that are built to last a lifetime, but can evolve with you as your life changes. It's a very hard and high design bar to live up to. We don't make a lot of things. Understand, Lovesac is the 19th largest purveyor of furniture in the United States. 19. We're past Ethan Allen, as an example. We sell 2 products. Every one of the competitors above me sells everything in your home, from flatware to trash cans for your bathroom. And so we have a path to do it, but we would not have had this path and everything we evolved into had we not just stuck it out for so long. So coming back to that first store, a mall calls us up who had rejected us and says, okay, we'll let you in on a temp lease for Christmas and the Winter Olympics. The Winter Olympics are coming. We got to fill some spaces. Brand new mall in Salt Lake called the Gateway. It was going to be like the centerpiece of coolest mall Salt Lake had ever had up to that point. And they gave us this space that was the bridge over 100 South. It was kind of like the center of the city. It was like this giant sign that said Gateway. It spanned over First South in Salt Lake City with the launch of the Winter Olympics a block away. For Christmas, they had a giant, like 30-foot wreath around this sign, and it encompassed our sign that said Lovesac in our neon script with our hibiscus flower that was bought on Trace's credit cards, the carpet, the paint. We tried to make it look good, and we did. And so much so that, we couldn't believe it. 10 days in, we were on track to do $1 million in our first year, which for us was like, we didn't even know if people would take us seriously. And by the numbers, like, we were cranking and people were coming in, the music was going, big screen TV, playing movies, couch in the corner to look pretty, flop down on a Lovesac. And they were buying them. They were taking them home. They were buying our hoodies. No one's buying a Pottery Barn hoodie. There's a brand there that is totally unique. And we were seeing this from the outset. Meanwhile, someone came in and said, this is so cool. The music's going, they're having a good time. The vibe is good. It looks professional. What is this? How have I never seen this? Like, who do I talk to about a franchise? And I see this happening. I'm working the store 12 hours a day. My friend Dave is kind of running the factory, bringing sacks over still warm from the shredder. And me and Trace, and they talked to my cousin, who do I talk about a franchise? And so I see this happen. Trace gives him my card and says, here, call this guy. He's like the head guy. And so I run outside the store. I answer my phone out on the bridge, Lovesac Corporation. And he said, yeah, you guys franchise. And I said, sure. Yeah. What location are you in? He said, your Salt Lake location. I said, oh, that's a good one. And 30 days later, we're selling franchises. First it was in Arizona. And then, simultaneous, we took kind of the money out of the drawer, drove to Southern California, started opening our own stores. And we were a bunch of idiots. We're 24, 25 years old, signing temp leases, signing permanent leases where we could get them in. And we know nothing about anything retail.
The pace at which you were opening stores was truly remarkable, right?
Oh, yeah. I think in that first year and two, we got up to like 40, 50 locations, and half of them franchised, half of them our own. And I'm not proud of it. Like, people ask me all the time, like, what would you have done differently? I mean, let's start there. I should have sat inside that one location that was working so well, really figured out why it was working so well, and duplicated it into a second, and then went and raised proper money on this wonderful concept. Instead, I didn't know anything about finance. I didn't even know people were willing to write checks. I was just trying to make money by slinging sacks. That was all I knew. I was just young and dumb. And so we had good ones and bad ones, like anything. And then somewhere, a couple of years in, I get recruited to be on this reality TV show with Richard Branson. I had this high flying business. Fox Network wants to build this show that's an answer to The Apprentice for Richard Branson. It's kind of going to be like The Apprentice meets The Amazing Race. And they were coming through different American cities recruiting. And they came through Salt Lake, and their ads didn't take. And so they go to the University of Utah, said, hey, we're here for a couple of days recruiting for this show. Do you know any entrepreneurs who are young and dumb, young and crazy and have businesses? And they found me, and I made a video and forgot about it. And then got a call back a few months later, said, hey, can you be in London a week from now, you're going to have to leave your business, leave your cell phone, no contact, 2 months filming all over the world, Richard Branson. And I'm running this little retail chain, right? That's amassing debt, opening locations, happy franchisees, pissed off franchisees, the whole ball of wax. And once again, my gut instinct, in fact, my partners asked me, well, that's a big risk, to take off like that. How do you feel? And I said, well, I feel like I'm going to get kicked off the first episode or I'm going to win. What do you win? I don't know, but they claim it's the biggest prize in reality TV show history. So 2004, filming the show, 16 contestants flying all over the world, Africa, South Africa, Zimbabwe, Japan, Hong Kong, back to London, back to Necker Island, leaving people on the tarmac along the way, business challenges, risk challenges with Branson, walking between hot air balloons, jumping off waterfalls, all kinds of crazy stuff. And I win. I win $1 million on national TV, $1 million investment. I'm handed this check on Necker Island. Of course, the TV won't tell you that I'm $2 million in debt, having built all these dumb stores and taken on inventory. And I'm made president of Virgin Worldwide for a period as well as part of this. My runner-up, by the way, for this show is Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx.
Yes. Yeah.
And who is amazing, of course, and a great friend. And I go back home and I've got to travel around for my duties with Virgin. I'm meeting all their CEOs, doing all this stuff. Lovesac's blowing up. We have all this celebrity momentum. And with this momentum, we raise venture capital. And venture capital's first big idea after looking at the whole business was, hey, we'll fund this into the next, strata. But we've got to get out of some of these bad leases. And, the best strategy for you is going to be to bankrupt the company, take it through Chapter 11 and reemerge with, a dozen locations that are clean and good and get out of franchising. It's no good for this kind of. And it was humiliating, man. I mean, here I am, a local celebrity. When someone from Utah wins a national show like that, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
And it really was the biggest prize in reality show history ever at that time. And so, and
you were the mom talk of the 2000s.
Right. Exactly. And now I'm in Chapter 11, first page in all the newspapers, and we've got to run the business. And that's what people don't understand is like, if you're not just done, you have to run the business while you're going to court, fighting out over all this stuff. People hate me. I've lost people money, different investors and lenders and all kinds of things. We've got to keep our morale up, keep selling sacks so we can make it through. Meanwhile, I'm closing down locations, dozens and dozens of locations that I just opened. I'm going in personally sometimes at night, as you do in shopping malls, chopping up cash wraps with a Sawzall that I just paid to install, and then getting back to the business by Monday to, keep the wheels on the bus. And it's just devastating, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually devastating. We make it through. Our investors kind of buy us out on the other side, and we reemerge with a dozen stores. They want us to either be in New York or LA to be close to this little group of investors that we've brought on. And we choose New York and land in Stamford, Connecticut. And I moved my wife. I was married somewhere in there. And she makes the move with me to Stamford. And we end up having 4 children out in Stamford, building the company for the next decade from, 10 employees back up to, 100. Get the company, let's say, from 2006 when we emerged to 2016, grew it to about 60, 70 million and 40, 50 really profitable locations, selling mostly couches. In that first store, we had a couch to look pretty. People kept asking about the couch. So we invented Sactionals, the couch that we could actually ship and make internetable. And that became super relevant by 2015 when we saw the entire direct consumer movement happening, Casper, Warby Parker. And we woke up as this little furniture retailer selling mostly couches realizing that we have the couch for the direct consumer movement. What we've never done is really heavily advertised, digital or traditional. And we embraced that model, and that just was a bombshell. We rapidly propelled the company from 70 to 700 million over that next decade till now, going public in the middle at about 100 million in sales, 7x'd it from 2018 when we went public. Ticker LOVE on Wall Street, which I'm super proud of. And here we are at about 700 million, selling mostly couches that you can have the rest of your life if you want to, ready to pivot into all kinds of other products and realms on this design for life philosophy that emerged over that decade.
When did you sell? When did you figure out? I understood you had the first couch in that location one, but when did you start selling Sactionals?
Yeah, so I kind of skipped over accidentally on that part, but it was Sactionals that I think really gave us and our investors, our earliest investors, the faith to see this company through. We had invented it back in 2005 and 6, even as we were heading into that chapter 11. Mm-hmm. And we knew it had a ton of potential, but we needed the company to survive to deliver on that. And we spent the next decade, by the way, from let's say 2006 to 16, trying to figure out how to out Pottery Barn across the hallway. And we were selling rugs and lamps and bowls and baskets and decorative accessories out of 800 square feet. And it never really worked that great, kind of hiding all of the really cool things about Sactionals underneath all of the stuff, and having all the inventory problems and merchandising problems that any furniture company has. And it was really when we jettisoned 90% of our SKUs, got rid of all that stuff and focused only on the couches, and the Sacs are still around, growing. But these magical couches you could have the rest of your life, and building advertising and a direct consumer model around that, and pivoting our stores, by the way, into showrooms. So Lovesac today is actually an internet model. The stores are not stores. They're showrooms to show you these fairly complex products and how cool they are. Now we have stealth tech inside. This is full surround sound built into these pieces that you can add to the pieces you already had 10 years ago. Front speakers, rear speakers, Dolby Digital 5.1, perfect audio, better than your home theater. I don't care if you have a $30,000 home theater, stealth tech is better. The proximity to your skull, the feeling of the bass reverberating through this giant sectional sofa really tastefully. It's amazing. It's our invention. It's our patents. We have dozens and dozens of patents on unique products, and eventually we'll have a whole connected home, and Lovesac, and we'll do things. We're a major competitor in home audio. We really are, by the numbers. I don't even think people realize that. Home audio. Mm-hmm. Not one of my direct competitors is even thinking that way. And we have a lot more up our sleeve when it comes to tech and what we can do with it in the home. And so what you're seeing from Lovesac today is just the beginning of what you're going to see. We're only a year or so away from really kind of revealing a lot more about how that's going to unfold and what that looks like, and why we think it's going to be so compelling and take us to a few billion in sales, at least in the, over this next chapter of our lives.
So you get everything running in 2001, and there's a huge lift there in the 01, 02, 03, 04 range as you're opening the stores. You're figuring out how to produce at massive scale compared to what it was before. And then you get hit with the chapter 11. I got to imagine that it's so hard to find lightning and trap it in a bottle once, and then to put in the brain power and the actual physical power. I mean, part of this too is you're looking at your wife and you're wondering, who marries an entrepreneur like me, right? In a lot of ways in commercial real estate development or brokerage, the same thing, right? Like my phone rings at 7 p.m. when we're sitting there at dinner, and it's unfortunate sometimes, but you take your work home with you, right? Yeah. And that's unfortunate for those loved ones in your life. Now, the good news is it puts you in a position where you can do what you want with your life a little bit more, but you never quit. You're never off, Right. So how did you muster up the oomph, what it took to get the thing going round two?
Uh, Listen, I've wanted to quit 1,000 times during that particular time frame as we're muscling through that reorg. Of course, was the most dramatic, scary, difficult, humiliating time. And yeah, in the book, I share the story. I'm at home, kind of talking to my parents one Sunday. I'm out there closing all these stores, keeping the wheels on the bus, laying people off, keeping the company going, and I'm kind of like venting to my parents on one Sunday afternoon. And they've never built anything to the scale. They can't really help me directly with any specific advice. But I said, what do you think I should do? People hate me. I look like a fool. I've lost all this money. I may never. I mean, it may not even work. What should I do? And I think my mom was a little bit upset, but she stood up from the table and said, finally, all I can say is you can quit or you can keep going. And as dumb as that sounds, it's no different than today. I could tomorrow, I guess, choose to sell all my stock and move on and do something else, or you can keep going. And I guess after doing that 1,000 times and making the decision to keep going, that's just my muscle memory at this point. And in fact, I have to do it again, like in the sense that Lovesac's doing great, done great. We've weathered this post COVID recession better than all of our competitors, who are back to like their 2020 levels of sales. If we were to do that, we would be at half the sales we're at today. So we've hung on, but it's been a really tough 3 years for the home category, because most people were buying this stuff during COVID like crazy with government money. So, and here I am telling you, we're going to branch into new rooms, new realms. We've got to reinvent ourselves again, and we're going to. And I'm very confident that we're going to be successful. I think we're going to eat up other categories, just like we've done before. And I guess that's my advice is you quit or you keep going. And if you're not sure, or even if you feel beleaguered, but you're not sure that it's time to quit, then the tie always goes to the runner. You keep going. And so I'm very grateful to have the opportunity to keep going. And in fact, I think I've gotten very good, and the organization's built up a lot of resiliency. That's the blessing of coming up slow and ugly, as opposed to just being one of these companies that raises $1 bazillion and burns. And look, some of those situations are great. They make someone super rich. Some founder gets super rich. Some PE firm gets super rich. But meanwhile, someone's usually left holding the bag. And most of those situations become worthless. Lovesac will always be valuable because we have strong bones. And not just me, the company, the product, the fan base, because we kind of had to come up the hard way.
So you shared the lesson learned when you had the one successful store, that one of the things you wish you would have done is spent more time figuring out what made that successful and then trying to repeat that.
Yeah.
You've opened a lot of stores, you've closed a lot of stores, and now you've reopened new stores. What do you think? What do you see when you look at a new potential store location? What are the attributes that you're looking for that you think makes it most successful for you and your operation?
Well, I think like any retailer, we have our formula, and it's unique for Lovesac because we have so many unique attributes to what I mean, look, you walk out of an Apple store, Apple, how much did you spend there? $1,000, couple $1,000. They've got 50 employees just at that one location, maybe 100, maybe 200, depending on the location. And I'm not picking on Apple. I mean, they're, the biggest company in the world, most successful retailer, maybe, depending on how you slice it. You walk out of Lovesac, though, down the hall, it's 800 square feet, maybe 1,000. There's 6 employees in total on the staff. One of them probably there at any given moment. and you've given me $15, $18, $20,000 a whack, because that's the type of stuff we sell. $5, $10, $15,000 sectional sofas packed with stealth tech, now the recliner, all these things. That's a very, very unique business model. And from co-tenancy that we obviously have our point of view on, to type of location, which is evolving. We are opening mostly now because, remember, our reality is changing. We've spent $500 million on TV advertising, specifically for couches. There's no other firm on earth that's done that. And so our ability to drive traffic, be attractive to a landlord, you can just imagine what our sales per square foot, after Apple and Tiffany's, we may have the highest sales per square foot in retail because of these metrics, right? And so our ability to be selective, our ability, before we couldn't get a space under the escalator, our ability to, go into the best centers. And look, we've gobbled up most of the A+ centers in terms of malls. So we're on to different types of real estate now, mostly outside of the mall. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that we have spent as much as we have on driving brand recognition and demand for our own product, as opposed to needing the foot traffic from a mall. So it is a constantly shifting landscape for us. And it has both to do, the shifts have both to do with the evolving landscape at retail, as well as our own march forward as a brand.
It's so interesting. I think we're like episode 23 or 24 here for our podcast, and we've had a handful of CEOs on here, and we've had a lot of people responsible to help open stores. And most of the concepts we're talking to are hyper growth concepts. What is so amazing to me is so much of the recipe for success, it seems like, with the retailers that have come on our pod so far. It's kind of twofold. One is it's culture driven, right? And I think a great example of that is like the Dutch Bros coffees of the world, versus versus most of the other established coffee concepts, and how they create that culture. And then the second thing is simplification of menu, right? A lot of our people are food people, but like Lane's Chicken or anybody, Dave's Hot Chicken, right? I mean, it's a pretty narrow focused menu. It's not wide. It's pretty tight.
Yeah.
And I think that is what is really fascinating about, what you have done. And it's wonderful that you've added in the Sactionals. And so you have at least a couple of product lines, but it's still narrow, right?
Yeah. I think that those are great observations. Those are great patterns to recognize. I think they are largely true because the world has evolved so much over this past 20 years. Like when we started, Walmart was still kind of on the come up in a lot of ways. Amazon wasn't even in existence. Walmart and Amazon have eaten the world. If you need something, you can find it there. So all that's left in product land anyway, and look, food, we could have a different conversation, but is experience driven. And even Lovesac selling couches, which you can find plenty of places, including Amazon or Walmart, need to have a point of view behind them that's very pungent. Otherwise, they have no reason to exist. People can find their chicken sandwich or whatever, or couch at 100 different places. And so without a strong point of view, without a strong culture, without a strong brand, in the end, the only moat left is brand. Because even IP, we have numerous patents at Lovesac. We defend them vigorously. We are very aggressive with our intellectual property, both getting it and defending it. But they'll never stop. I liken them to banana peels in Mario Kart. They will spin out your competition. They'll make their life sucky for a minute. But there's always ways to continue on. And so the moat is not patents. The moat is not even trademarks or anything like that. The moat is the brand. You know, you mentioned Dutch Brothers, coffee, the culture, all of those aspects, the culture, even the, you know, to some degree, the product itself, it's all pieces of the brand. The brand is all that's left because everything has been commoditized.
That's pretty fascinating. What do you think the biggest lesson you learned from that, going back to that hyper growth, the 2003 and 4 areas? What did you learn to do? What did you learn not to do?
Yeah, so we got to kind of experience hypergrowth at least twice. Once was in that first realm, and the second was really COVID. And even leading up before COVID, like I'd say from the time we went public in 2018 until, let's say, 2022, I mean, the company 7x'd, you know, in a period of about 3 or 4 years. And that's at scale, right? That's not in the $10-20 million range. That's at the $100 to $700 million pace. Let's go to the negative. You know, classic mantra: grow too fast, things get bad. And so growth can and should be controlled. We tried to grow too fast. Huge mistake. Stay focused on what you're doing and do it really well. I think this is one of the things that biggest lessons I've had to learn the hard way is there's plenty of coffee places. I think Dutch Brothers is probably going to do just fine if they just keep doing well what they're doing and not be looking over their shoulder trying to, you know, beat fill in the blank brand to every street corner or whatever it is they're trying. You know, don't play the real estate race game. It's not necessary. If you have a good thing, a good concept, there is plenty of room to win. And in fact, here's another thing. You have to remember that, like, as hard as these last 3 years have been for Lovesac, because it's this post-COVID pullback, whatever, and we're doing fine. Like I said, we're doing better than all of our competition in a lot of respects. We're profitable, we're cash flow positive, we're still growing, we're opening locations, all this stuff. But it's still painful compared to the growth that we got to enjoy when the getting was good, you know, in the early 2020s. All of my competition's feeling the same pain. You know, they're feeling these same headwinds. They're going through their own cultural struggles, maybe even worse because they don't have my culture. They don't have my energy. They don't have my stamina. And when I say my, I mean my businesses. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And I don't see that. I see their glossy stores, or I see their, you know, good products, or I see their Instagram. But they're all have their own demons to battle. You got to have faith in that. You have to have faith that, yeah, you have your problems as a business, as a brand, as a concept, but so does your competition. So just keep your head down and control what you can control and build the best brand and culture. And if you just swim long enough, you're probably going to look up, raise your head, look up and look around, and you may be the leader. And I think, you know, we're on a path to do exactly that. And in a lot of ways, we already are that. We have the best selling sectional in the United States of America right now by the numbers. But I still feel like a pygmy compared to some of the brands you can think of, you know, that are across the hall from us or whatever. Just because, you know, there's power in having that chip on your shoulder. So, you know, focus on your brand, your culture, your concept, and it can succeed as long as, by the way, the fundamentals are there, right? Like, if it was never good to begin with, mm-hmm. that's a different problem.
Well, Shawn, thank you for joining us on the Dirt Dog Pod today. You're doing huge things with Lovesac, hearing about, you know, the recovery story and 7xing the brand after going public, and some of these sentiments from your early days. Wonderful insight. Thank you for being with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. And for everybody out there, if you don't have a Lovesac, go check out the Sactionals line. Go find a store, go find a friend that has one, because they make incredible products, and see where you can put one in your home or your office.